All right, new here on the Hill within the past hour. Turns out Stormy Daniels taking the stand today in New York wasn't even the biggest legal development for Donald Trump. The judge overseeing the classified documents case down in Florida now says that case is postponed indefinitely. It is big news for Trump, no doubt about it. But how about this for President Biden? Today, lawmakers sent him a letter pleading for help along the southern border. They want him to do something on the border and do it now. But that plea, it didn't come from Republicans. It came from Democrats who are pushing him to act. And by the way, coming up here on the Hill, a live look right now, Miami, Florida, downtown there in the Magic City. It happens to be Fleet Week, and the legend, Gloria Estefan, is in the middle of it all to try to help with a big military problem. Gloria Estefan joins us live here on the Hill. Come on in, I'm Blake Berman. This is the Hill on NewsNation.
Today is Tuesday.
All right, here we are. Here we go. Thanks for being with us, hanging out with us. Scott Bolden, former D.C. Democratic Party chairman, NewsNation contributor as well. Denise Gitsom, Republican strategist, NewsNation contributor. Chris Hahn is a NewsNation contributor and former senior aide to Chuck Schumer, the Democratic senator. And if you're catching a theme here, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, of course, former Trump White House chief of staff as well. Hello to you all. Nice to have you in. They're already getting it going. We have a lot to get to here on the show.
Why do I have to sit next to Hahn is my question.
I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge of seating. If you want to rearrange this right now, we can.
We're related.
I got to sit next to Denise.
This is Jesse Weber is going to be joining us here momentarily as well. This is a show where we have Congressman James Comer, by the way, who's going to be joining us in about 20 minutes' time. Gloria Estefan, who's going to be joining us in 30 minutes' time. I'm not sure those two have ever been on the same show together, but there's a lot to get to. But good mix indeed. Let's start with Donald Trump, though, because we started the day, oh my gosh, Stormy Daniels is going to be on the stand. Here we are. This was sort of a moment that some had been waiting for. And then, Mick, within the last hour here, we learned that the classified documents case in Florida is essentially postponed indefinitely. What does that mean for Donald Trump?
Well, the second one is a huge win for Donald Trump. There's no question. We'll talk about the New York case here in a second, but the document case being delayed is a huge win for Donald Trump. And I think it rightly so. Keep in mind, I've always thought that case was just almost as weak as the one in New York. This is essentially, and I know Scott is absolutely going to yell and scream.
He's getting there. I promise you.
I can see it from here. The man forgot to return his library books. That's what this is all about.
There was also, though, like pushing the lawyer to lie to the FBI, though, no?
Listen.
Why didn't you just turn the documents over?
Just gave them back.
Hold on, let him finish.
We're talking about putting a former president of the United States in jail for a technical violation of law. Okay. Now, granted, would that I'd handle it differently? Yes. But face it, Biden kept documents, Pence kept documents, Obama kept documents. I recognize the fact that the difference is...
Yeah, the difference is when the FBI is involved and allegedly lying.
No question. It's never the crime. It's never the crime. It's always the cover-up. I get all.
Am I the only one who thinks that Aileen Cannon saw what was going on in New York today and said, let me distract from what's going on in New York? Exactly. Because we don't want to be talking just about the president having unprotected sex with porn stars all day, do we? Let's talk about something else.
So these are independent cases.
They are.
You're furious that... So to be clear, what she essentially did, the judge down there, was said there's a dozen or 15 so different things that we have to tick through, hearings, motions, so on and so forth, and all of that will take place between now and the end of July. Exactly. And so she essentially said, we got to go through all that, and thus the case is on hold.
In 32 years of practicing civil and criminal defense, I have never seen a federal or state judge, and remember, I grew up with one, postpone on her own a trial date voluntarily, no motions, nothing on her own, arguing that the resolution of these very complicated issues, every case has complicated issues, that the resolution of these issues essentially trumps the speedy trial that the defendant is entitled to on her own.
But the speedy trial belongs to the
No,
accused,
it doesn't.
not to the government.
No, it doesn't.
The right to a speedy trial belongs to the defendant.
To the to the defendant, yes, but this public interest in getting to trial is shared by the government and the defense on this case.
I think the public...
Jesse, I know you're there. I'm going to get to you in a second, but Denise, go for it.
You know, we're talking about this as if it was a win for Trump, but the reality is it's a win for Americans who are tired of seeing this ridiculousness play out on TV every day when there is an election coming up in November for the leader of the free world and who's going to take over the mantle of America. So we can finally get to talking about the issues that matter to everyday Americans, because only 1 in 4 Americans is actually paying attention to these trials at all in the first place.
I would just say some obviously feel that Trump's conduct is a part of that decision.
But 1 in 4 can the economy,
Jesse Weber, Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor, come on in. This happened within the last hour. Jesse, you surprised? Is Scott here?
No, I agree with Scott. Look, there's a federal law. It's called the Speedy Trial Act. And really what it does is it sets time limits for deadlines. And in her order, she said we're basically tolling it. We're pausing it. Now, this is a complicated case because you are dealing with classified documents and the very specific issue of how do you handle those documents? How do you present them to a jury? But I am surprised in the sense of this case that the trial date's indefinitely postponed. We don't know when it's going to happen. And even as you mentioned, Blake, they said there's into late July is when there's these deadlines right now. But then the judge can come back and say, we still don't know how long it's going to take to work through these issues. And this could be very well pushed past November. And by the way, I have to disagree with Mick here because, in my opinion, this is the most straightforward case. This is the case that Donald Trump worried about the most. So this is a major win for him.
I still think the January 6th case is the one that gives him the most, puts him the most at risk. I don't think anybody's going to countenance putting a former president in jail for a documents case.
I didn't think he was going to jail.
Unless they
No, that's the whole idea. This is a criminal case.
He was not going to jail, but he was going to be found guilty in that case. He was not going to go to jail. He's not going to go to jail in any of these cases.
You don't think so?
Not at all. Never. Not going to happen.
Okay.
Well, he won't go to jail. He'll get held in contempt of court again and again and again. He will never go to jail.
So, Jesse.
I'll bet you that.
The other case today, Stormy Daniels, up on the stand. It got salacious. It's all out there. Listening to us here on NewsNation or on Sirius XM, the details are there. You can see them. But I want to talk about what Trump's team made the case that because it got so salacious that they asked for a mistrial and the judge didn't grant it to them. I wonder what you make of it.
Look, they make a good point. A lot of those details are irrelevant. I will tell you what, Blake, I think there was only a fraction of her testimony that honestly mattered. And I would even make the argument they might not even have had to cross-examine her. Why do I say that? Because this case is about falsifying business records for the purpose of repaying a hush money payment and not categorizing what it was. What did she add to that? Well, the thing that she really added to it was one specific point, that Donald Trump was really only worried about this story coming out at the election, when the Access Hollywood tape came out, that he really wasn't worried about it when it first happened. That's the only salient point, in my opinion, that the prosecution can move forward with. All the details about their intimate relationship doesn't matter to this.
Yeah. So, Scott, you have sat here and you have said this is a paper case.
Yeah.
And to Jesse's point, Stormy Daniels has little to nothing to do with the actual paper case, the bookkeeping. The money went from here to there. So why did she need to take the stand?
Well, she's the reason we're here. She committed the act, and this is what triggered the business fraud and the documents and the cover-up. But, Jesse, I even predicted with my colleagues here that Stormy Daniels should not even take the stand, that they weren't even going to call her. Well, and I was proven wrong this morning because they did. But I think you're absolutely right. The other thing is about the Salacious Sex Acts. I think it's harmless error because she's not really relevant, probative, or material to the ultimate charges in this case.
Well, let's be clear. If the jury ends up convicting Donald Trump, they're going to raise this on appeal and try to get an interview with every one of those jurors if these factors mattered to them in their decision-making process. But just to add to that, I think she had to take the stand. In any prosecution, you have to establish at the very base facts. You have to establish there was a relationship here. But again, it's just the idea that, yes, he had a relationship, and yes, she's biased. She admitted that on the stand. Yeah. You can really move past that. It's just the concrete issue of had an affair, tried to cover it up, and when he tried to cover it up. That's all we care about.
Mick's dying to get in here, so I'll give you the last word.
I want to ask a political question.
Let's bring it back there.
It goes more to Scott than it does to Jesse, which is, isn't that what this case is all about? The salaciousness is why this case was brought. They want to try to make Donald Trump look bad. Keep in mind, this is one of the, if not the most politically motivated of the four. We can have different discussions about the Mar-a-Lago documents, about January 6th, about even the Georgia case. But this is a politically motivated case, and even Democrats said that, or admitted that, when the charges were first announced over a year ago. Getting Stormy Daniels on the stand in order to talk about sex with Donald Trump is why we are here.
Okay, well, that's part of it, but he wasn't charged with politically motivated embarrassment, if you will. There's no such charge as that. This is a business fraud case. He was charged with 34 counts because of what he tried to cover up, not because he had sex with a porn star.
So if that's the case, then why have the porn star get on to talk about the sex?
Well, because she triggers why we're here, and Jesse's right. You got to lay out the facts and tell a story to the jury. I didn't think she was particularly important with
You
this.
always have to prove the but for.
Right.
But for the relationship with Stormy Daniels, he would not have needed to cover
take
it
her.
up.
You can take her testimony away and discount it as not credible, and he still gets convicted for business fraud.
So we could talk about this all day.
And another thing.
And we would be but for Aileen Cannon.
Now we know how he bills hours. Counselor, we're done. And another thing, Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor. Thank you, Jesse. We'll talk to you soon.
Good seeing you guys. Thanks so much.
All right, so that's that. And, of course, it all intertwines with the election, right? And so does the host of issues. We talk about the economy, we talk about abortion, and then there's the southern border. Live look at Capitol Hill right now, where a group of House Democrats are calling on President Biden to take executive action at the southern border. I said Democrats. That wasn't a typo. It was Democrats writing to the president today. Here was part of their letter. Quote, "It has become clear that the current situation remains untenable." They go on, Democrats, to the president, saying, "We urge you to use all tools at your disposal, including executive action to better address security at the southern border, interdict illicit fentanyl, and allow for orderly legal immigration." They are calling for the president, Chris, to take executive action.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling for the president to do what would have been done had they passed the measures earlier this year that would have given him more tools to do just exactly what they're asking to do.
Look, in that letter, I don't mean to cut you off, but they acknowledge Republicans did what they did. Right. So now, Mr. President,
your turn.
Yeah. And I think he's going to. And I think he should. When? He does, when he does it, how he does it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If
I knew that, you know.
I mean, but here's the problem, is that you've got all these members of Congress that admit, they understand that it didn't get done in Congress because they recognize that he was the one that ultimately held the power from the beginning. When he undid, 300, well, how did Trump get it then? Because he undid 300 executive orders that President Trump established. He did it within the first year of office. No, I'm not finished. I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
Let her finish. Okay.
And so, therefore, he can go back and undo all the things that he undid that Trump did. So there's really no reason for him to sit and wait for Congress to do something. In fact, if he did it, we wouldn't be in the situation where you have the embarrassment
here's what I want.
You can't have the
coming after your own
saying,
president.
open the country up from COVID, yet let's keep this COVID restriction in place. That was helping solve the immigration problem. The only order that Trump gave that actually did anything was the COVID order. No, the COVID order, Title 42, is the one thing that opened up the gate. Okay. And that you cannot say, on the one hand, I'm opening up the country. We want to get people back to work. We want to get people back shopping, doing everything.
Then what
on
are
the other hand, we're going to keep COVID restrictions.
So I want to get Scott in. And then Mick is jotting down notes and sitting there very silently and patiently. Scott.
Well, if you, I don't mind executive orders. I agree he needs to do something, but he can't do it without the money, and that's up to Congress. So Congress, do something. Authorize the money for more border agents, for better technology, even, quite frankly, finish the wall if you think that works, but do something.
Wow,
he can't do
finish
anything.
the wall. Who are you, Scott?
Listen, the reality is he can't do a whole lot. He can reverse all of those orders, but if Congress doesn't authorize the money, how does he implement it? You'd criticize him for
Presidents
that.
Presidents redirect money all the time in the things that are priorities. So,
and you all would charge him with doing damage to the country.
I'm pulling up the White House. Time out.
Immigration.
I'm pulling up the White House statement because I want to get that in.
Yeah.
But Mick.
Well, I got two questions. First of all,
oh gosh, you're opening this up to questions.
Very briefly,
sure.
Be curious to know if these Democrats have heard from their own leadership in the House, if they had to clear this with Hakeem Jeffries before they sent it down to the White House, and if not, what have they heard since then? But number two, I do laugh. It sort of bemuses me when I hear my Democrat friends say, "Oh, Congress should act," because I sat on the floor during the State of the Union speech in 2000, and I guess it was 12, when Barack Obama said, "I'm not going to wait for Congress. I have a pen and a phone.
Right.
I'm going to do it without you," and he got a standing ovation from Democrats.
So the 2013 Immigration Reform Act, though, would have solved this problem then. Congress could have done it then. They could have done it this year. W had a bill as well a long time ago.
Here's what the White House said, quote, "Congressional Republicans chose to put partisan politics ahead of our national security and rejected what border agents have said they need. We continue to call on Speaker Johnson and House Republicans to pass the bipartisan deal to secure the border." That is the statement from the White House. Remember where all of this started. House Republicans passed their measure, H.R. 2, went nowhere in the Senate. In the Senate, they negotiated with the White House. Donald Trump had Republicans essentially block that. That went nowhere in the Senate. I had the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, on this very set last week, and I asked him, what's going to happen? Is it going to be the status quo? And the answer was essentially, there's not going to be much change between now and November. And what you have now is Democrats saying, Mr. President, do something. That is part of the backdrop. We will see if he does it. All right. 44 minutes left here on the Hill on NewsNation. So that's politics, some of it at least.
Can we make it?
Coming up here no, we can make it, I promise you, in about 15 minutes' time. Gloria Estefan here on the Hill. Legendary singer. You might be wondering, what on earth are you doing talking to Gloria Estefan on a politics show? She is trying to help with military recruitment. There is an event going on in her hometown, Fleet Week, by the way, in Miami. So Gloria Estefan joins us live. And if Gloria Estefan's on one side, how about Congressman James Comer on the other? James Comer, the Republican, and what he is going to ask tomorrow to the D.C. mayor and the head of police here in Washington, D.C. about what is going on campus at George Washington. Those two live interviews when The Hill on NewsNation returns. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Earlier today, speaking at a Holocaust memorial event, President Biden condemned anti-Semitism and criticized the ongoing college campus protests.
There is no place on any campus in America, any place in America, for anti-Semitism or hate speech or threats of violence of any kind, whether against Jews or anyone else. Violent attacks, destroying property, is not peaceful protest.
George Washington University, which is located here in Washington, D.C., will be the specific focus tomorrow of the House Oversight Committee. Now, that university has asked D.C. police to come in and break up the encampment on its campus, but the police force has not taken action. Congressman James Comer chairs that committee, and the congressman joins us live here on The Hill. Congressman, thanks for being with us here on The Hill on NewsNation. We appreciate your time, sir. So this hearing tomorrow on GW, you're going to have Mayor Muriel Bowser from Washington, D.C. there, I think the top cop here in Washington as well. What are you hoping to get out of this, sir?
Well, we want a solution to the problem. As you know, I led a few of my House Oversight Committee members to the protests last week. We walked through the area. We saw firsthand what many of the students at George Washington, particularly the Jewish students, are having to endure. We also met privately with the president and administrators at George Washington University, and it's very clear they need help from the Washington, D.C. police force to be able to remove the trespassers who are protesting illegally on their campus, and we're trying to find answers as to why the D.C. police force has not yet provided that response that the faculty at George Washington University has very publicly requested.
You know, it's fascinating to me, sir, that you just said you're hoping to find a solution to the problem. We all know of that hearing 6 months ago or so that led to the ouster of 2 university presidents in the Education and Workforce Committee that had that hearing and the viral moment with Elise Stefanik. But since then, Congressman, we have seen anti-Semitic incident after anti-Semitic incident all across this country on college campuses. And it just seems like, Congressman, that the Congress has failed here. Has it not?
I disagree. I mean, the Republicans have identified the problem. This problem has been around for many months. We've been hearing from Jewish students and Jewish leaders for many months prior to that education hearing that there was an anti-Semitic movement at campuses all around the United States. So we wanted to bring the university presidents in to Congress. So they came to the appropriate committee, the Education Committee, which I'm also a member of. And Elise Stefanik asked the question if they condemn this anti-Semitic rhetoric, and they refused to answer. So it was apparent that there was a problem on these campuses and that the university presidents weren't doing anything about the problem. The problem's only gotten worse. It's gotten to the point to where we have these protests, and I'm all about peaceful protests, but the problem at George Washington University, which, by the way, the House Oversight Committee has legislative jurisdiction over the city of Washington, D.C.,
yeah.
The problem at George Washington University is these protesters are trespassing on property, and the rhetoric is very intimidating and threatening to Jewish students, which make up over 20% of the student population.
It has gotten worse, Congressman, and I think that's part of the point, right, is that it's gotten worse, and yes, you're trying to do something about it, but what can you actually do? Because it has gotten worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, first of all, we can get these trespassers off the property. That's step one. Step two is hold universities accountable that are allowing this type of behavior or that are having faculty members that are trying to indoctrinate anti-Semitism into their students. We can hold them accountable by reducing their federal funding, by reducing the number of foreign visas that come into these universities, because universities, whether they're a big Ivy League school or a small private school in Kentucky in my house district, they get a significant percentage of their revenue from foreign students. We want foreign students to come to the United States to get educated. That's a win-win for everyone. But the problem is that we've got students that are coming in from some of these countries that have an agenda against Jewish students, and that's wrong, and we don't need to be subsidizing that type of behavior with our federal tax dollars.
Before you head out, Congressman, you want the audio on a much different issue. You want the audio of President Biden's interview with the special counsel Robert Hur. The Justice Department has said the following. They sent you and Congressman Jim Jordan the following, saying, quote, it seems that the more information you receive, the less satisfied you are and the less justification you have for contempt, the more you rush towards it. Are you going to hold a vote to hold Merrick Garland in contempt next week? And if so, why?
The Judiciary Committee has already announced they're going to hold a vote, and I would predict that there's a strong possibility the Oversight Committee will as well. Look, for Merrick Garland to say that's very rich, we've requested a lot of information pertaining to the mishandling of classified documents, pertaining to the Biden influence peddling, and they have produced virtually nothing in return. So I disagree strongly with that statement by Merrick Garland. I believe that he has proven time and time again he continues to obstruct congressional oversight. So his opinion really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. We've requested information. We've subpoenaed that with a lawful subpoena. We expect to receive that. He's obstructing that.
Congressman James Comer, appreciate the time, sir. We hope you come on back. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. I'll let you respond to that.
He's never going to be satisfied. He can have the audio. He'd want the video. He'd want to, get the people who were in the room with the audio mics to make sure it was the real audio. There is nothing that the Attorney General can do to satisfy Comer and Jordan.
Is it legitimate, Denise?
I mean, it's an election year, sure. I mean, I hate to just default to the reality of politics, but think about the year that we're in. And honestly, James Comer and the whole Oversight Committee has been an extension of a campaign. And so I feel like they believe they're doing their job, and I think a lot of Americans believe it as well. So there's a legitimate reason for them to continue.
I'm not a fan of these impeachment proceedings. I've said that before. I'll say it again. But that letter from the Department of Justice is wholly inappropriate. That is a political letter from a non-political person, and that's not right. That is the deep state.
Okay. All right. Still much more ahead here on the Hill. Social Security for thee, but not for me. Is that what's going on? Hot Mic with Mick coming up later in the show. I want your take on on what we learned about Social Security and Medicare.
I actually know the topics today. I'm very excited.
You do. As a former budget director, you know this stuff. I think both sides are to blame here. I'll get into that with you. And in just minutes, other side of the break, Gloria Estefan joins us live. Why she is now involved with the military. Gloria Estefan, other side of the break. Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. It is Military Appreciation Month, and for the first time ever, the city of Miami is hosting Fleet Week with 5 ships currently docked in Port Miami. It is a time for the military to show off its best and perhaps tackle the ongoing issue of military recruitment. The Cuban-American singer, Grammy Award winner, Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient Gloria Estefan is a big part of the festivities this week. She joins us live here on the Hill alongside Kathy Roth-Duquet, who is the CEO of Blue Star Families. Hello to you both. Thank you for being here. Gloria, as a kid who grew up in the 305 and went to Palmetto High School, it is nice to speak with you. Tell me about... yeah, exactly. Tell me about what brought you to Fleet Week and what you're trying to do.
Well, first of all, welcome to the party. We're here celebrating our amazing troops that, give so much for our country and to us. I'm an Army brat, so I know exactly what military families go through. And by the way, happy birthday to Blue Star Families,
Our
Kathy.
15th birthday, too. Thank you.
We're here to give them a big Miami welcome. It was cooler yesterday. It's got a little warm now.
What drew you to this, Gloria? I know my friends down there in Miami have been sending me pictures and videos of all the Fleet Week stuff. It looks awesome. But I'm wondering what brought you to this and what you're trying to amplify.
I'll tell you. Well, it's the Secretary of the Navy, Carlos del Toro, is Cuban. And we have made a really close friendship through the past few months. And he invited me to welcome the troops, and who better than a Miami native, an immigrant whose father served in the military, and, that I want to celebrate all these amazing people that put their lives on the line for us, that sacrifice so much, as well as the families that are right there with them. So I just wanted to be here to say thank you to the troops.
And
Kathy,
it's so important for us to introduce our troops. And Miami doesn't often see them. So to take our folks, this speaks to the recruiting crisis you were talking about. When you get to see how amazing these people are and what an important mission they're on, we invite everyone in Miami to come on out to the ships and see what we do. It inspires service, not just in the Navy or the Marine Corps or the Coast Guard, but throughout the whole country.
Yeah, Kathy, there is an ongoing effort to boost recruitment, and what does stuff like this, what do events like this, Fleet Week in a new area, in a new town, not in New York, but down at Port Miami, how does that help?
Yeah, Blake, it's in the center of it, because we see one of the reasons recruitment goes down is because people who serve in the military can feel isolated. But when they get a big welcome in a community, it encourages them to recommend service to other people. Plus, they are so inspiring. They're so squared away. And it might make people who never thought about the military be able to see themselves in one of these outstanding young people here today.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I took my family on the ship. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you. Knowing a lot about you from being born and raised in Miami, I feel like I know a lot about you, but I didn't know that your father's service and how that influenced you.
Absolutely. It's tough for the families, but all the families are behind the military 1,000%. We need the military, in this country. And I think when people come and see what they do, see the ships, I saw so many different nationalities on that ship today serving. We also got to do a naturalization ceremony on the Bataan. And it always, makes me really emotional to see so many people that love this country and that support it. And I think when people see what our military does, then just see them on the news, I think it really brings it home.
And can I just say, Gloria Estefan, the queen of pop, she's a military kid. And when military kids can see themselves in her, that's super motivating. So it means so much to us that you're here.
Thank you very much.
I hear Avicii playing behind you, Gloria. I feel like I'm 28 back at Live Again, but that's a story for another day. Gloria, Stefan, Kathy Roth-Duquet. Kathy Roth-Duquet, thank you both for being here. Enjoy the festivities down there. Fleet Week in Miami. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Events like this, yes, nice to speak to you both. Events like this is what we need. I mean, Fleet Week, you normally think about like New York and pulling in. Port Miami is where the cruises go, right? You go to Miami for the cruises, but...
And now more than ever, in a moment where you're seeing the juxtaposition between these incredibly committed public servants who put their life on the line for our country to preserve the very values that these protesters at all these campuses that are the same age group are protesting against. I mean, the fact that immigrants like Emilio and Gloria are the ones that appreciate America the most, just like my dad, who joined the military from Canada and joined to become an American citizen. Those are the people who appreciate what we have here the most and will do anything to protect and preserve it.
Military recruitment, I think the Army and the Air Force are going to hit their levels. The Navy, though, is like 60, and look at you, I mean, you could see that graph over time. That's dating back to the 60s until now, essentially, and it's a straight line in one direction.
Yeah, well, the straight line is for various reasons. The peak of that graph is from Vietnam, and you don't need as many people now as you did back then. That's not the point. The point is they're not getting the number of people that they need. Interestingly, Fort Jackson is in my congressional district. I remember visiting Columbia, South Carolina, and I noticed early one day that the recruits were walking and they were not running, and I joked about how, it would take a difficult time getting them into shape. And the general says, Congressman, the number one reason that our recruits go to the infirmaries for broken hips. Broken hips.
In their 20s and
18, 19, 20. They're so sedentary and they can't meet the physical requirements. I think when we were in the White House, we had some data that 75% of American children between 18 and 25 could not satisfy the physical requirements.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a real problem.
On the higher end, on another end of that spectrum, if you look at the imposing military hardware that we just saw in the video, and you think about these young men who are 18 to 25 years old, and women who are operating these incredibly complex machines, whether it's jet fighters or whether it's ships like that or frigates, and you think, my goodness, the training that goes into operating these complex machines.
Well, thank God for them every day, right? We got to thank God for them every day because they serve. It's you talk about the 1% in America. This is the less than 1%. The families, they need to be supported. The vets need to be supported when they get out, and it's something we should never ever forget. A country should be judged by how they treat their veterans.
That's right.
All right, on the other side of the break, Hot Mic with Mick. I got a press release into my inbox yesterday.
About Hot Mic with Mick?
Not about Hot Mic with Mick. We'd be moving up. It came from the White House. Could you imagine if the White House emailed us about Hot Mic with Mick? That would be something. But the statement made me nearly jump out of my chair, and I want to talk to you about it on the other side of the break. Hot Mic with Mick. You're watching The Hill.
Myself in so I don't
here on NewsNation. We're back in a few.
I think that's what Stormy said.
NewsNation tonight. 4 Americans detained overseas on vacations gone terribly wrong. Now 2 of the men join Chris live from Turks and Caicos with their side of the story and what they want all America to know. Cuomo, tonight at 8 Eastern on NewsNation.
Mulvaney.
What do you got, Berman?
I got a few different things. They're waiting for this, too. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mike Johnson, they met today for a lengthy time. Thomas Massie was there also.
For longer than they should have.
For longer than they should have. So here was Speaker Johnson before the meeting, Marjorie Taylor Greene after the meeting. Want to get your thoughts.
It's not a negotiation, okay? This is how I've operated as Speaker. I committed to do it before I became Speaker, and we've been doing this for the last 6 months.
And right now the ball is in Mike Johnson's court. He understands that he's got to be our Republican Speaker of the House.
What are you hearing?
They're tired of her. They're all tired. Even the folks that have been with her in the past are tired of her. This has turned into it's been exposed now for what it was for her from the very get-go. There's a lot. Listen, Thomas Massie's upset about FISA. He's got some real difficulties.
The surveillance.
Some of the other issues and so forth. He's in it for the right reasons. Marjorie Taylor Greene was in it for the reason you just saw right there, which was huge press gaggles.
Show business.
And that's exactly right. And I think she's wearing out her welcome.
But why are they following her if she's everything that you say or think she is? if she gets that media coverage, man.
You saw Mike Johnson being Mike Johnson, which is like, look, this is what I do. I talk to people. And he's just a nice guy. I think it's one of the reasons he got the job was to keep in mind, they went down the list of all the possible replacements for Kevin McCarthy, and everybody else had sort of made enough enemies to preclude them from getting the job, and Mike didn't.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say, the way he's dealing with her, the respect that he's showing her is actually amplifying the differences between the types of people who are actually serving right now. It speaks great to his character.
Hey, so here's her demands.
Hostage taking, I love it.
Majority of the majority, meaning half of Republicans, must support any bill. No more Ukraine funding. Defund the special counsel, Jack Smith, and wants a 1% spending.
Wow.
Sure, she's one of 535.
She doesn't have the votes to oust him. So the demands are not worth the paper that they're written.
That's right.
Okay. All right. We are about 6 months away from the presidential election, or we're in the presidential election. 6 months until Election Day, and the dialogue around debates is starting to pick up, with the president saying last week that he is, quote, happy to debate Donald Trump, still, though, nothing yet is scheduled. You have a new op-ed out in The Hill, thehill.com today, titled, quote, we need more presidential debates, not fewer. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, I saw that we talked about the Howard Stern interview here last week when Biden accidentally said he would love to debate, and you automatically, at least I did, got the feeling the Democrats are trying to dial that back. Keep in mind, the official Democrat position before that interview was they'd wait to see if Trump earned a debate by his behavior. And I can tell you that the Democrats were never going to. He was never going to meet that, okay? And my fear is that the Biden team is laying the foundation for not debating because Biden's not as good a debater as Trump, and there's too much downside. We need debates. I get it that everybody thinks everybody's decided. It's good for the country. There's still a small number of people in the middle who are undecided who could impact.
As I've said.
Let me finish this. And you need them sooner, not later. They're not talking about doing one till September.
Do you need them with RFK Jr. in them?
Sure, why not? I think that's good for everybody.
Look, keep lowering the bar for Joe Biden. Just keep helping him. This happened 4 years ago. Donald Trump was lowering the bar for Joe Biden. Then they debated. Donald Trump lost 5 points in the next poll.
Exactly.
Okay, and it's going to happen worse this time because the only thing that they're worried about Joe Biden, the only issue they can run on against him is that he is not competent to stay in office. And when he goes to the debate and he's making salient points and not falling down and drooling, he is going to win.
So you're going to be counseling the Democrats to have as many debates as
I say yes. I say have them, and I say one camera, no audience. Boring moderator. Can't be. Maybe you could do it.
This was what I was going to say. Those are your. That's your list.
That's my list.
Yeah. But here's how confident the White House and the campaign is about having the president go before serious journalists and serious anchors and serious moderators. The last interview was when?
Howard Stern.
Exactly.
What are you talking about? This was the greatest interview of all time. Did you watch his Bruce Springsteen?
Hold on, time out.
He had Nikki Glaser on.
Hold on, time out. This was the greatest career moment for you because he featured you.
It was the best moment of my television career. I am a major Howard Stern fan, and it was the best. Hey now.
I did something that Han didn't do, okay? I actually watched the interview with it. It was the biggest softball. I mean,
it was. I want to get started here in a minute.
There was proper modulation.
Nobody has a problem debating Donald Trump, but Donald Trump doesn't debate. He violates every rule there is. He doesn't come with facts. It's not an orderly debate. He overtalks to moderators. And so why should Joe Biden, who is the president, reduce himself? I agree the country needs to, but then he's got to agree to an orderly debate and follow the rules.
You all are jumping out of your chair.
If you want to run for president, you should debate. He should commit to at least to a couple debates.
As long as Trump debates.
And then also commit to the Presidential Commission on Debates, which the Republican Party has withdrawn from.
Here's what got me jumping. This is what got me jumping out of my chair.
All right.
Okay.
Of all things, Social Security and Medicare, believe it or not.
We don't believe that.
I'm telling you, because here was the statement from the White House. Quote, Medicare is stronger and Social Security remains strong. We got the report basically saying that those two will not be fully, we won't be able to get Medicare Part A or your Social Security in full in a decade. And I heard the White House say it is strong and stronger. By the way, in the Trump administration, they didn't touch it. Candidate Trump hasn't touched it. The only presidential candidate to touch this was Mike Pence, and what happened to him? See ya. It's coming on both sides, and for the White House to say it is stronger, come on.
Well, it is stronger.
Come on. It's like giving Tylenol.
10 years away.
You know you're going to have a heart attack in 10 years, and it's saying here's the Tylenol.
But it was supposed to be 8 years. Now,
by the way, this isn't anti-Biden because both administrations have done this.
The only way to fix this is to have smart, thoughtful legislators on both sides of the aisle come out together so this becomes depoliticized, because this is an issue that's going to affect you and me more than it's going to affect our esteemed colleagues to either side.
The Republicans are the ones are proposing,
I'm concerned about it.
Are proposing privatizing Medicare as well as Social Security. That's one of their proposals.
You have to
do something, but then come up with an alternative.
The Democrats haven't.
You don't get to punt against.
We're not punting.
You have to either raise taxes.
We got 10 years to figure it out.
You have to either raise taxes.
Yeah.
You either have to cut benefits, or you print money out the ears.
Or you have
what happened to that over the last 3 years when he's printed money?
Republicans are doing both printed money.
We've got to kick people like Scott off.
By the way, programming note.
I want to point out that was Hot Mike with Mick with no Mick in it.
No Mick. Oh, sorry. Mick's free. I'm sorry, Mick.
But I'm fascinated.
Zero Mick.
Short version of this, until we can agree on how to fix the budget for the housing and urban development, we're never going to be able to finish Social Security, and we can't fix any of it right now. And this program is barreling towards a difficulty, and my guess is it's going to break before it gets fixed.
And that was Hot Mike with Mick.
Well done,
Thank you,
Mick.
sir. By the way, programming note, tune in Thursday for a special edition of Dan Abrams Live. NewsNation is live with border authorities as they patrol in real time, plus conversations with police departments across the country examining the border crisis. Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here on NewsNation. Other side of the break, Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, joins us. You're watching The Hill.
Remember when Republicans...
All right, so before we say goodbye, here's a story that caught our eye. The New York Governor, Kathy Hochul, is under fire after making a remark suggesting that black students in the Bronx don't know what the word computer means.
Right now we have, young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word a computer is. They don't know. They don't know these things.
Those comments made at a business conference in California discussing a new AI initiative. Her office has since clarified those remarks, saying, quote, of course, black children in the Bronx know what computers are. The problem is that they too often lack access to the technology needed to get high-paying jobs. Host of On Balance, Leland Vittert. This caught my eye. I know this caught your eye.
I guess the question to me is, whose fault is this? And by that, we looked it up. The New York public schools spend $38,000 a kid.
That's wild.
Yeah, a wild number. Yeah. $38,000. That is the salary of many Americans per student. So is it the teacher union's fault? Right. Is it the school administrator's fault? Is it the governor of the state's fault that these children don't understand or don't have the knowledge that she was talking about? Roughly half of the kids in New York public schools are not proficient in math and reading.
$38,000 is in many major cities what it costs to go to a private school to send your kids, and that's what they're spending in public.
And it is